Pay-per-view was amazing. UFC 264 preview, post thoughts. Chris Montinho had a chin of steel, like I predicted. Very tough and a very trouble, unorthodox puzzle for Sugar Sean to solve. And a tough southpaw, Chris Montinho. His first MMA pro debut was a lot of hype, and I was glad to promote that man. Chris Montinho, if you're watching this, good job, my brother. Clearly hard. I do not agree with the stoppage, although I think that fight was really bad of a beating on Montinho's part, getting beaten on the bad side of the stick. I do agree that the fight should have been stopped when damages like that is getting took. On the other hand, I don't agree that the last 30 seconds, that first 14 minutes, 30 seconds, Montinho going forward, surviving, I don't think that last 30 seconds is going to put him out. Although, I do think it's ironic enough to say that O'Malley's combinations were as sweet as they've ever been against Montinho that night. Especially following up after that, we had a Tai Tuivasa KO win against Greg Hardy. As predicted, Tai Tuivasa put the pressure on Greg Hardy, KO'd him sweet, out cold, and a good crossroads fight that is going to bring Tai Tuivasa one step closer to the heavyweight ranking winning system. Guys, notable wins. I think Curtis Razor Blades would be an amazing fight for this young man. Tai Tuivasa, you're a fucking killer, man. Congratulations on your win. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson still showing a killer, going toe-to-toe with arguably the greatest welterweight right now, Gilbert Burns, the explosive power puncher with the best jiu-jitsu, arguably welterweight history, with an excellent wrestling domination, followed up with that overhand, a very Rampage Jackson wrestling box style that allowed him to use his boxing and kind of pressure out Thompson and really throw Thompson off his guard and not really get him in a comfortable position for him to be allowed to throw shots to get points without being in danger. Burns did a good job at that, being the younger, more explosive athlete, and looking forward to seeing who Burns fights in his near future. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 3 was a great fight and a also really eye-opening fight to really far stretch out the competition that McGregor's dealt with, as we've seen his not so frequent appearances in the octagon lately in the last 5 years, being, I believe, 2-2 in his lightweight record. Now he's like 3-2 in his lightweight record, or 2-3. He's actually lost more than he's won, which is a damn shame, given that he had so much promise against Floyd Mayweather after that fight. You were to think that Conor McGregor would have never lost, and that may have not been the case if he would have continued to fight and be more frequently competitive, consistently being in the octagon, not getting wealthy and civilized, and consistently conditioning those shins and getting back in the fight and evolving as he did. Conor was such a force in the featherweight division. When he was in 145, Conor was perfect. But when he left 145, he wasn't the same. He lost to Diaz, he came back, beat Diaz, and then fought Alvarez in the best performance you've ever seen him. Because he lost to Diaz, because he had that eye-opening evolution that he needed to overcome to achieve, to become a great fighter that he is, you really got to saw Conor thrive, man. And even with the Mayweather fight, he thrived. And against Khabib, who honestly is no shame in losing, because Khabib will beat and will always beat any lightweight fighter. I don't think there's a damn man in the next 10 years that's going to be able to beat Khabib in his prime. I think there's no shame in losing to Khabib, especially when you won a round against him. And although getting dropped, put on a somewhat decent performance against Khabib, obviously not the right mindset he should have had, walking him down, showing no respect, drinking beer nights before the fight, week before the fight, more looking on the promotion side than the legacy fight. And by the time Conor was coming back against a shock cowboy, I believe Dustin Poirier was on like a 6-fight win streak. He lost to Michael Johnson, beat Jim Miller, beat Eddie Alvarez, beat Justin Gaethje, beat Eddie Alvarez again. Beat, I think he beat someone else. I can't remember who he beat after that. I want to say Max Holloway, Jim Miller, Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez again, Max Holloway in a rematch to win the interim title. So by then he was already fighting top 5 best killer after killer. You know what I mean? Especially a young, unexperienced Justin Gaethje, who was a young killer, and stepping inside the ring with a threat like Max Holloway, who, coming off 4 fights before that, a knockout loss against Michael Johnson, really was a very impressive performance. How he was able to not just take Holloway to the distance, but fight his fight and outbeat one of the greatest boxers in MMA history, and just the best featherweight in general. I mean, the guy was a tank. You saw what he did to Jose Aldo and Anthony Pettis. You know what I mean? Just a great fight. And Anthony Pettis, another win against Anthony Pettis, a lightweight Anthony Pettis. Dustin Poirier is constantly grown, and as we've seen, a threat with multiple tools and multiple levels of fight IQ that he's built by consistently conditioning himself and staying in the trenches. As for Conor, forging a whiskey empire and renting out yachts and the business game, and really using his prime years of should have been competition and fighting, using that in promotion and money and business and legacy for his children, which was already in stone when he beat Alvarez. Fighting Mayweather was just the icing on the cake, a cherry on top of the ice cream. It was a respect to McGregor for what he's accomplished, giving him the big money fight, but what could have been the letdown to him, because I believe that big money fight really changed Conor McGregor and how he saw himself after that fight. I believe when he fought Cowboy, we were also promised of a motivated McGregor who didn't even fight the rest of that year. Coming back into Poirier, who, going into that fight, I made a video about Poirier winning, because I thought, I genuinely thought that Conor on his best day beats Poirier on any of his best days. You know what I mean? An injured Conor on his best day beats him. You know? The thing was, Conor's best day was 5 years ago. He was fighting Eddie Alvarez in Madison Square Garden. That was best Conor. So not to put any extra on that ankle injury that he did have, and in camp, which I believe will be on the Netflix special, Mad Max Fury's Road, which is something that I want to see Conor really stressed out in the training that he had to put into. For what I believe, Conor had really took training to a next level to prepare for this trilogy fight, the importance of this fight. And for his ankle to be rolled like that was such a shame and such a shock, and almost brings it back to full circle, where you almost look at this as a dust fight. Like, Conor's next opponent's going to be a dust out sweeper, I believe, but I don't know who. I want to say RDA. I want to say Bernal Dariush. Tony Ferguson would be great. Honestly, Dan Hooker would be solid. Islam Makhachev would be great. I would love to see Conor McGregor fight Islam Makhachev. I think if he fought Islam Makhachev, that would show a lot of, that would be a big publicity stunt, not just for Conor, but in a guy who's supposed to be the next Khabib, who the promotion is building as a future star. Why not just give that to Conor? I'm sure Conor would love starching Khabib's boy, giving that their confrontational aggression they have towards one another. Restroom is, audio might be weird. I had a computer room for my mom, but honestly, YouTube's just a lot more complicated than I give it credit for, and I don't give enough credit to YouTubers who pursue this as a career and a job, but I will be using a great setup. My quality of my videos will be getting better soon, and I hope to see y'all watching my videos. And as I continue to make these, I just hope that y'all can not look at this for the quality, but for the content I bring out. And to you, those of you who I've known, who've known my ambitions for creating this content, I want to apologize for not doing this as frequently, not just for y'all, but for myself. As for, I know nothing happens overnight, and I need to be more consistent with these things, you know, and just in life and in general, you know what I mean? I mean, I feel like everyone's human, especially Conor McGregor, and that night's performance was remarkable. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley should fight. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley should fight one of the guys. I think he should fight Chris Montino. I think he should fight Chris Montino. I mean, I think he should fight Dominic Cruz. I think Dominic Cruz would be a great fight, number 10. Maybe a rematch against Cheeto Vera. I think him dusting out Cheeto Vera would be great. I could see him may or may not fighting a who's who and John Dotson at bantamweight. I don't know, honestly. You know, I'm really excited for this TJ Dillashaw versus Corey Sandhagen fight, which I'm going to be definitely tuning into, which I will be talking about. I hope one day to really edit my videos in a quality where I can talk about multiple sporting events in one video. But I think I might just be doing a double upload tonight talking about Dillashaw versus Sandhagen. But back on the topic of the pay-per-view that was a couple weeks ago, I do hope McGregor to bounce back. I do hope to see him come back better than ever and just to come in here and be consistent. Because that's all you can hope for as a McGregor fan, is to just see him in the octagon. That's it. That's it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's McGregor runs his own camp. The only man who is the best for McGregor is him. You know, his coaches aren't running the show. It's the McGregor show. McGregor runs his training camp, his sparring partners, his team, his conditioning. McGregor runs everything. You know, his coaches are just there. So I think the best option is to see McGregor in the octagon again on this year. You know, get another fight in this year. I do see that. I see McGregor consistent coming in next year, and hopefully we can get him to try to catch up, because at this point he's already at 32, which is a little older in the MMA rankings, the UFC. When you're looking at even superstars like Anderson Silva, who stuck around until he was 34, 35, he was able to do it, but with being consistent and constantly staying, you know, just skillful, consistent in the craft, which I feel like McGregor has. I feel like McGregor's kept that shiny sword, but he hasn't used it. You know, he hasn't got that sword bloody. He hasn't been in the battle. He's just been sharpening his tools, but hasn't been using with killer to killer. As for guys that I believe, if Conor was active since the Mayweather fight, I think most of these guys that now I would put money on beating Conor and smashing his face in, like a Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, you know, Justin Gaethje. I think Conor would have smoked those guys if he would have fought him 4 years ago, 3 years ago, being more consistent, which is something that he needs to catch up with. His age, he needs to catch up. 32 years old, he needs to find a way to come back and be more active, as Dustin Poirier, who is in many parts a killer who stayed in the trenches mindset mentally. I mean, physically is the one thing of a fighter's career that slows down as far as age, but it's mostly the mental mindset. It's the mental mindset of a fighter, right? Because it's the mental mindset of a fighter that keeps you to keep going. It's not your age, because 40, you don't stop bench pressing because you're fucking 40. You stop bench pressing because you're exhausted, you don't want to do it anymore. Much obliged to. And you look at, you know, fucking, what's his name? You look at, you know, Dustin Poirier, who's constantly been fighting at 32 and is still somewhat average in age, I guess, for UFC champions and just high level. Against Conor, you know, Conor just kind of seemed off. He just kind of seemed he didn't have the money. He had so much money and so much things on his mind that mental going back on the building site, which going back on the building site sounds great when you hear McGregor trying to get out of that civilized mindset and become hungry. But when a man's been hungry for the last 6 years, and Dustin Poirier, who hasn't slowed down and flashed Rolexes and Lambos, haven't been doing money business deals, has been fighting consistently and sharpening his tools and growing. Growing is the key word. The word that everybody in that top 10 division has been doing. Something that Conor hasn't been doing in the last 4 years. Inactivity. Has more losses than he's won. And has really paid the price for it. You know, I want to see Conor come back as much as anybody. I hope RDA would be great. I think Rafael dos Anjos is a guy who's somewhat stayed consistent. I think would be a great fight for Conor. I think RDA would be a great fight for Conor. I think that'd be a dangerous fight for Conor because RDA stayed somewhat active, and you know he's been sharpening his tools. I would say a little bit better than he was before in some ways the same. You know, I think he still has those flaws from 2015 as the champ, but you only grow as much as the competition. I think RD has learned a couple things that could help him going into a fight with a man in McGregor who's not as motivated as he once was, doesn't have it in him as much as he once was, is so much more frail. I think RDA could take advantage of that. As far as Burns versus Thompson, I would love to see Burns back in the title picture. I'd love him to fight Jorge Masvidal. I think would be a good fight. I think that'd be a really threatening fight for both fighters, but I would like to see that. And I think, yeah, honestly, I think a Burns Masvidal fight would be incredible. I'll like to see y'all soon. Thank y'all for tuning in. It's Colton. I'll catch you on the next one. I'm gonna take a shit.